I thought I knew everything about my straight roommate. But one night, while I was fast asleep, something happened that completely shattered that belief. When I woke up, I couldn't believe what I saw, and what happened next turned my whole world upside down. Started like any other night. I just finished a long day of classes and work, exhausted and ready to collapse into bed. Nothing unusual, at least that's what I thought. I'd been living with my roommate, Chris, for over a year. He'd always been straight. At least that's what I'd believed. When I first moved in, I didn't think much of it. We were just two college guys splitting the rent. Chris and I got along easily. We'd grab beers, watch movies, talk about life. He was athletic, social, always surrounded by friends. I was quieter, more into books and gaming. It was an easy friendship. I never expected anything more. He had a girlfriend back then, and I kept my own feelings well hidden. It wasn't like I thought he'd ever look at me that way. But about 2 weeks ago, something shifted. I can't say exactly when it started. Maybe it had been building slowly, or maybe I just started noticing. There were these subtle changes, quick glances, brief touches. Nothing obvious. But I noticed. He seemed more playful lately, almost like he was trying to get a reaction out of me. One night, we were watching some over-the-top action movie on the couch, sharing snacks. He kept nudging me, laughing too close. I brushed it off. Just Chris being Chris. Right? Then came the night that changed everything. We'd been at a small party. I'd had a couple of drinks, not enough to be out of it. On the walk home, Chris was unusually quiet. When we got back, he gave me a look I couldn't read. Less of his usual grin, more intent. "You good?" he asked softly. "Yeah, just tired," I said, heading for my room. Then, just as I was about to close my door, he said, "Hey, mind if I crash in here tonight? Don't feel like sleeping alone." I hesitated, confused. We'd shared a couch before, but this felt different. Still, I didn't want to make it awkward. Sure." He climbed into bed beside me. At first, we just lay there in silence. Then he shifted closer. I could feel the warmth radiating from him. I told myself to ignore it, to focus on the faint hum of the city outside. But the tension in the air made that impossible. At some point, I drifted off. I woke later, not to a sound, but to a feeling. The room was dim, lit faintly by the streetlights outside. Chris was still there, but closer, much closer. I could feel his breath against the back of my neck, steady and warm. His arm was draped over me, his hand resting lightly on my chest. For a moment, I froze. My pulse quickened as I tried to understand what was happening. Was he still asleep? Did he realize how close we were? I shifted slightly, and his arm instinctively pulled me closer. My mind raced. Was this a mistake? Just a moment of half-asleep comfort? Or something more? I didn't know. But I knew one thing, whatever this was, it had changed something between us. And there was no going back. Maybe it was just an accident. Maybe I was imagining things. But before I could make sense of it, Chris shifted closer, his face brushing against the back of my neck in a quiet, almost searching way. I could feel his breath, warm and steady, and suddenly the space between us felt charged in a way I'd never experienced before. What was going on? This was Chris, straight Chris. My mind scrambled for an explanation. Was this a joke? Some kind of half-asleep accident? But then, in a low voice I almost didn't catch, he whispered, "Are you awake?" I gave the faintest nod, trying to slow my heartbeat. His hand rested lightly against me, his touch lingering as though he wasn't entirely sure of himself. "I don't know why I'm doing this," he murmured, his voice uncertain, different from the easy confidence I was used to. I should have said something, should have moved, but something about the moment kept me still. It was a confusing mix of curiosity, fear, and something else. "Chris?" My voice came out softer than I expected, my breath uneven. He didn't move away. If anything, there was a hesitance in him, like he was waiting for a reason to stop but hadn't found one yet. "I don't know what's happening," he said quietly, "but I need to know something." "What is it?" I asked, unsure if I wanted to hear the answer. I'm not supposed to feel this way, he admitted, his voice low and unsteady. I can't. But I want to. His words froze me. Was he talking about me? About us? Or was he just caught in the moment? Before I could decide, he leaned in and his forehead touched mine. His voice shook. I'm sorry. I don't know what I'm doing. I shouldn't be doing this. But instead of pulling away completely, he stayed there, close enough for me to feel every unspoken thought between us. You don't have to apologize, I said quietly, surprising even myself. You don't. He ran a hand through his hair, clearly conflicted. But I do. I've never felt this way before. I didn't think I ever would. I didn't mean for this to happen, but I can't stop thinking about it. There was guilt in his eyes, but beneath it was something raw and unguarded. He was wrestling with feelings he didn't understand. Truthfully, so was I. I reached out and placed a hand on his arm. You don't have to figure it out tonight, I said softly. We don't have to do anything you're not ready for. But don't apologize for feeling something real. His gaze shifted between my eyes and the floor. But I don't know what this means. I've always thought I was straight. This doesn't make sense. Maybe it doesn't have to make sense right now, I replied with a small smile. Maybe it's just something we can figure out together. No pressure. He hesitated, then let out a short, nervous laugh. You always know how to make me feel better, don't you? I try, I said, smiling faintly. For a while we sat there in silence, just breathing, both lost in our thoughts. I didn't know if this was a one-time moment or the beginning of something bigger. But somehow I felt calm. Not because I had answers, but because, for the first time, I didn't need them all at once. I just need to know I'm not losing my mind, Chris said quietly. I've never been this close to another guy, and I don't know what it means about me. I don't want to ruin what we have. You're not crazy, I told him, giving his hand a reassuring squeeze. Whatever this is, we can take it one step at a time. I'm here. Chris nodded slowly, his eyes closing for a moment as he let out a long breath. Yeah, okay. He didn't say anything else, but there was something softer in his gaze now, even with the uncertainty still there. I wanted to reach out again to close the space between us, but I could tell he needed time. Time to sort through his thoughts, to understand what all of this meant. So instead, I stayed where I was, letting the quiet stretch between us. The night wasn't over, but I knew one thing for sure: things would never be the same again. The days after that night were a blur of mixed feelings. Neither of us spoke about it directly, but the unspoken words hung in the air. We acted as though everything was normal, but underneath it wasn't. Chris seemed distant, not cold, just distracted, like he was still working through it all in his head. His smile didn't quite reach his eyes, and when he looked at me, there was something new there. For me, the memory of that night lingered constantly. The way he'd let his guard down, the closeness, the weight of the moment. It was impossible to shake. I tried telling myself it was a passing thing for him, but a part of me hoped it wasn't. The hardest part was not knowing what came next. Would he pull away completely? Pretend nothing had happened? Or was he quietly trying to figure out what it meant for him? A few nights later, I sat in the living room, flipping through channels but barely watching. My mind was elsewhere, on Chris, on the unanswered questions, on the strange distance between us. I couldn't take it anymore. That's when I heard his footsteps in the hallway. Slow, purposeful. He appeared in the doorway, his expression uncertain. Hey, he said quietly. Got a minute? My heart skipped. Of course. He walked in, sitting down beside me. The space between us was small, but it felt like a mile. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. Then he took a breath. I've been thinking about what happened. About you and me. I swallowed. Yeah. It's like I've been in a fog since that night. I don't know who I am anymore. I get it, I said softly. It's confusing, and it's okay to be unsure. We don't have to figure it all out right now. Chris ran a hand through his hair. But what if I don't want to forget? What if I want to figure it out? With you. His words hit me hard. I looked at him, really looked at him. His face was open now, vulnerable in a way I wasn't used to. "I've been thinking about it too," I admitted. "And no, I don't have all the answers either. But I don't want to pretend it didn't matter." Relief flickered in his eyes. "So, you don't think I'm crazy?" I shook my head, a faint smile on my lips. "Not at all. I think we're in uncharted territory. But maybe it's worth exploring." He exhaled sharply, like he'd been holding that breath for days. You don't know how much I needed to hear that. For the first time in a while, I felt hopeful. We didn't know where this was going, but I wasn't afraid of the uncertainty anymore. Chris shifted slightly closer, his hand resting between us. He hesitated, as if waiting for a sign. I didn't need to say anything. I just leaned in, closing the distance. When our lips met again, it was different this time. No hesitation, no confusion, just a quiet understanding that whatever this was, we were both willing to explore it. When we pulled back, the room felt, still almost suspended. Chris's eyes searched mine. "I didn't expect that," he admitted quietly. "Me neither," I said with a nervous laugh. He looked at me like something had shifted inside him. "I've never felt this way before," he said honestly. "Not about a guy. I'm trying to make sense of it." I nodded slowly. "So am I." I stayed still, my heart pounding, as he nodded slowly, eyes closing for a moment before letting out a quiet breath. "Yeah, okay." He didn't say anything more, but there was something softer in his gaze now, still uncertain, but no longer closed off. He was processing everything in his own way. I wanted to reach out, to kiss him again, to explore whatever the strange pull was between us. But I could tell he needed time, to untangle his feelings and understand what all of this meant. So instead, I just stayed beside him, letting the stillness fill the space between us. The night wasn't over, and neither was this unexpected chapter in our lives. Whatever came next, I knew one thing for certain: things would never be the same between us again. What happened next was something I never could have imagined. The days after that night blurred together, a haze of confusion and quiet tension. We didn't talk about it, not directly, but the unspoken words were there, hanging in the air between us. It was as if we were pretending nothing had changed, but deep down we both knew it had. Chris seemed distant, not cold, just caught up in his own thoughts. His laughter felt a little forced, and even though he was still the same guy I'd been living with, something in the way he looked at me was different. Not bad, just new. I, on the other hand, couldn't stop replaying that moment. The warmth of his lips, the hesitancy in his touch, the spark that had surged through me. It was all burned into my memory. I told myself it might have been just a moment of weakness for him, but part of me hoped it wasn't. And the question that kept creeping in was, what now? Every time I saw Chris, I wondered if he would avoid me, pull away, or act like nothing had happened. A few nights later, I was sitting in the living room, absently flipping through channels. My mind kept drifting back, to Chris, to that kiss, to the silence that had stretched between us ever since. That's when I heard his footsteps, soft, steady, and getting closer. He appeared in the doorway, hesitant. "Got a minute?" I sat up straight, my pulse quickening. "Of course." He came over and sat down next to me. The space between us was small, but it felt like miles. Finally, he cleared his throat. "I've been thinking about that night, about you and me." I swallowed. "Yeah." His gaze shifted toward me, uncertain, but searching. "I feel like I've been walking around in a fog since then. I don't know who I am right now." "I get it," I said quietly. "It's okay to be unsure. We don't have to figure it all out right away." His fingers trembled slightly as he ran a hand through his hair. "But what if I don't want to just forget about it? What if I want to figure it out with you?" His words hit me like a jolt. My heart raced. "Chris, I've been thinking about this too. A lot. And no, I don't want to ignore it either. I don't want to pretend it didn't matter." His eyes softened, relief flickering there. "So you don't think I'm crazy?" "Not at all," I said with a faint smile. "I think we're both in uncharted territory, but I think it's worth exploring." He let out a deep breath, as if he'd been holding it for days. You don't know how much I needed to hear that. I didn't know where this would lead us. But for the first time, I wasn't afraid. He shifted closer, his hand resting in the space between us. I leaned in, closing the distance. This kiss felt different. No uncertainty, just the quiet promise of something new. We stayed like that, close but not rushing, letting the moment speak for itself. When we finally pulled back, he looked at me like I was someone new, someone he was seeing for the first time. I've never felt this way before, he admitted. Not about a guy. It's okay not to have all the answers, I told him. We can take it slow. No pressure. And just like that, some of the tension between us broke. We were both on the same page, still figuring it out but willing to try. He smiled. I just know I want to see where this goes. Me too, I said. Later, as I lay in bed, I didn't spiral into overthinking the way I usually did. I just felt at peace. Then my phone buzzed. Still awake? I smirked. Told you I wasn't overthinking. His reply came quick. Good. Just wanted to make sure. A pause. Then, can I come back? A moment later, there was a soft knock on my door. Chris stood there, hair messy, hoodie loose, looking unsure but determined. I didn't want to be alone with my thoughts, he admitted. Come in, I said. He sat on the edge of my bed, staring at his hands. I don't know what this means for me, for us, and that scares me. That's okay, I said gently. We don't have to name it yet, but we both know something changed, and that's real. For the first time, something in his expression settled. One step at a time, he said. One step at a time, I echoed. I reached for his hand. Not dramatically, just enough to let him know I was there. He flinched at first, then held on. We stayed like that, breathing in the quiet. For the first time in a long while, neither of us was afraid of what came next. But now I want to know, what do you think about all this? Should I feel bad about what happened? What would you have done in my situation? Tell me in the comments.